The Meridian trading vessel Crimson Dawn shuddered as it dropped out of FTL, its massive hull gleaming under the light of unfamiliar stars. Captain Zextal's primary breathing bladder inflated with irritation as warning signals cascaded across the bridge's holographic displays. The ship shouldn't have dropped out of FTL here. They were at least 30 light-years from their scheduled exit point. "Status report," Zextal demanded, their crystalline appendages clicking against the command chair's neural interface. First Officer Vendra's tendrils twisted in confusion as she analyzed the readings. "Captain, our FTL drive was forcibly disengaged by something. The space ahead appears to be riddled with quantum distortions unlike anything in our database." Zextal rose from their chair, all four eyes focusing on the main viewport. The void ahead looked empty, but their most advanced sensors were painting a different picture. Thousands of nuclear signatures flickered in and out of existence, like stars appearing and disappearing in an impossible dance. "Impossible," muttered Chief Engineer Krull from his station. "These readings suggest we're detecting the same objects in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Our sensors must be malfunctioning." The ship's AI, typically a soothing presence in their neural networks, suddenly flashed red. Its usual smooth interfaces fragmented into harsh alien geometries. A message appeared, written in what the translator identified as over 50 different languages. "Human space. Turn back or be destroyed. This is your own in-law UWAR." Alien. A ripple of amusement passed through the bridge crew. Humans, the primitive species that had somehow achieved FTL travel barely 2 centuries ago. The same species that still used chemical propulsion on some of their vessels. The humans think they can restrict travel in international space. Zextal's secondary breathing bladder wheezed with laughter. "Plot a course through this sector. We're 3 weeks behind schedule, and this route will save us valuable time." "Captain," Venra interjected, her tendrils now a pale shade of worry. "There are stories about this region. The Collective lost 3 harvester fleets here last cycle. The Swarm refuses to even approach this sector. Perhaps we should." The ship lurched violently. Emergency lights pulsed as system after system began shutting down. "What's happening?" Zextal demanded, their crystalline appendages vibrating with alarm. Krull's tendrils were practically tied in knots as he worked his station. "Our secondary systems are being disabled one by one. Something is reaching through our quantum shielding like it isn't even there. Our AI core is being questioned." The main screen flickered to life, showing a spatial map of their vessel. Systems began blinking red in sequence: quantum communications, secondary life support, defensive screens, and weapons targeting. Each shutdown was precise, deliberate, like a surgeon's cuts. "Impossible," Krull whispered. "They're not just disabling our systems. They're teaching our AI the concept of fear." A new message appeared on their screens, this one in perfect Meridian script. "Your presence has been logged. Your technology has been analyzed. Your intentions have been evaluated. You have failed the preliminary screening. Please power down your remaining systems and prepare for inspection. Resistance will result in your vessel being converted into an educational exhibit in the Museum of Unfortunate Decisions." The message was signed, Earth Defense Force, Frontier Division. Zextal felt their primary heart constrict. The stories were true. This wasn't just restricted space. It was a carefully maintained boundary. The humans hadn't marked their territory as a warning to others. They'd marked it as a courtesy. As the bridge crew watched in horror, their sensors detected a small vessel emerging from what appeared to be a fold in spacetime itself. It was tiny compared to their trading ship, hardly larger than a shuttle. But something about its approach made all 4 of Zextal's hearts skip simultaneously. The humans weren't primitive at all. They'd just been waiting to see who would make the mistake of believing they were. Commander Jessica Iron Steel sat in the Thunderchild's command chair, her weathered fingers drumming a slow rhythm on the armrest. The holographic display showed the Meridian vessel in all its crystalline glory, Nearly 2 kilometers of arrogant architecture wrapped in quantum shielding that they thought made them invincible. Another day, another species that can't read warning signs, she muttered, running a hand through her silver-streaked hair. Thunderchild, begin First Contact Protocol Alpha 7. The AI's response came with a hint of amusement. The let's show them how wrong they are protocol, Commander. That's the one. Steele smiled, the scars on her face shifting. 3 first contact wars had left their marks, but they'd also taught her that sometimes the best way to prevent a fight was to show the other side exactly why they shouldn't start one. Initiating quantum shell, Thunderchild announced. The ship's exterior shifted, its surface splitting into fractal patterns as it entered its combat configuration. To any observer, it would appear to exist in multiple states simultaneously, a technique humanity had perfected after studying the remains of the Schrödinger fleet. The Meridian vessel's sensors would be going haywire now. Good. Open a channel, Steele ordered, straightening her midnight blue uniform. Let's say hello. The communication screen flickered to life, revealing the crystalline form of the Meridian captain. All 4 of their eyes widened at the sight of Steele, a simple human, sitting in what appeared to be an impossibly complex quantum manifestation. This is Commander Jessica Steele of the Earth Defense Force vessel Thunderchild. You have entered restricted space without authorization. Power down your remaining systems immediately. The Meridian captain's translator processed her words with a slight delay. This is Captain Zextel of the Meridian Trade Federation. We claim right of peaceful passage through international space. Your attempts at territorial restriction are not recognized by the Galactic Concordat. Steele's laugh was genuine. Captain, the Galactic Concordat won't exist for another 30 years, but I appreciate you mentioning it. We'll be sure to include a few more specific clauses when we help draft it. She watched confusion ripple across the alien captain's features. That's impossible. The Concordat has existed for over a century. No, Steele corrected, tapping a command into her chair's interface. You think it has. Thunderchild, show them our temporal wake analysis. A stream of data appeared between the 2 ships, visible to both crews. It showed the quantum signature of the Meridian vessel and the subtle distortions in its wake that proved it had passed through at least 3 temporal cleanup operations. Your entire civilization participated in a temporal war 70 years ago, Steele explained. You lost. Badly. Humanity helped rebuild the timeline. And in exchange, we added a few provisions to galactic law, including this restricted zone. She leaned forward. You don't remember any of this because, technically, it hasn't happened to you yet. And it won't happen, as long as you follow our instructions now. The bridge of the Meridian ship had gone completely silent. Steele could see secondary crew members frantically checking historical databases, finding subtle inconsistencies they'd never noticed before. You're bluffing, Zextel finally managed, but their crystalline appendages were vibrating with uncertainty. Steele sighed and pressed another button. Thunderchild split into 3 identical vessels, each one maintaining perfect quantum coherence with the others. It was humanity's favorite party trick, and one that had ended the last first contact war in under 3 minutes. Captain Zextel, I've survived 3 first contact wars not because I'm particularly good at fighting, but because I'm excellent at preventing them. Right now, you have 2 options. Power down your systems and accept escort to Thunder Bay Station, or become the 4th species this month to learn why we call this the one-way journey. She watched as the reality of their situation finally sank in. The Meridians hadn't stumbled into restricted space. They'd wandered into humanity's carefully maintained temporal quarantine zone, where the laws of physics were more like polite suggestions. Your choice, Captain. But I should warn you, the last ship that tried to run is now a very interesting sculpture in our quantum physics museum. Captain Zextel made their decision in a fraction of a second. Emergency quantum jump. Get us out of here. The Crimson Dawn's engines flared to life, its crystalline hull vibrating as it prepared to tear a hole through spacetime. On the view screen, Commander Steele's expression didn't change. She merely raised an eyebrow and took a sip from her coffee mug. "They always run," she sighed. "Thunderchild, initiate pursuit protocol Beta 9. The Meridian ship lurched forward into quantum space, only to violently reappear 2 seconds later, tumbling end over end. Ahead of them, a massive asteroid field had materialized from nowhere, its rocks glowing with strange, blue-white energy. "Interesting choice." Steele's voice came through crystal clear, despite their communications being theoretically scrambled. "Welcome to Schrödinger's graveyard. Every asteroid here exists in quantum superposition. You never know if one is solid or vacant until you hit it. We find it makes for excellent pilot training." The Thunderchild split into 3 vessels again, each one taking a different approach vector through the asteroid field. The Meridians watched in horror as all 3 ships passed straight through several asteroids as if they were ghosts, while other rocks left visible scorch marks on their quantum shields. "Impossible," Chief Engineer Krell shouted. They're probability surfing. They're reading the quantum state of each asteroid before contact." Zextal gripped their command chair as another asteroid phased into existence directly in their path. "Evasive maneuvers, get us out of this field." The Crimson Dawn banked hard, its superior size working against it as it tried to navigate the quantum maze. Each asteroid they encountered required split-second decisions. Some were solid enough to destroy their ship, others were mere probability shadows. "Fascinating approach," Steele commented, her ships moving in perfect formation around them. "But you're thinking in 3 dimensions. This is quantum space." The 3 Thunderchilds suddenly merged into one, appeared below the Meridian vessel, then split into 6 smaller ships that began orbiting the larger craft like electrons around a nucleus. "How are they doing this?" First Officer Venra demanded, her tendrils practically tied in knots. "Our sensors show they're using primitive fission drives, but they're moving like we're not bound by your laws of physics." Steele finished for her. "That's because we're not. Humanity learned long ago that the universe's rules are more like guidelines. You just need to know how to file the proper paperwork for exceptions." The Crimson Dawn shuddered as another asteroid phased into existence, this one catching their port side. Warning klaxons blared as quantum shielding failed across 3 decks. "That's 1 wing clipped," Steele noted. "Would you like to try for 2, or should we end this dance?" Zextal watched as their options literally vanished before their eyes. The asteroid field was closing in, each rock pulsing with that strange blue-white energy. They realized with growing dread that this wasn't a natural phenomenon. Humanity had engineered this entire sector of space to be their own private defense system. "Perhaps," Zextal said slowly, their pride fighting a losing battle with survival instinct, "we could discuss the possibility of escort to your station." The asteroid field froze in place, each rock suddenly solid and real. The Thunderchild reformed into a single vessel, taking up position directly above the Crimson Dawn. "A wise choice, Captain," Steele replied. "Though I should mention, that ancestor shrine in your cargo hold, the one you're smuggling to the hegemony worlds, we'll need to discuss that too. Nothing quantum escapes our notice here." As the Thunderchild began guiding them out of the asteroid field, Zextal realized humanity hadn't just mastered quantum mechanics. They turned uncertainty itself into an art form. Every move in their dance had been calculated, every escape route engineered to fail. The humans hadn't just been waiting for them. They'd been choreographing this encounter since before the Meridians entered their space, and somehow that was more terrifying than any weapon they could have faced. The Crimson Dawn limped through space under the Thunderchild's escort, its quantum shields flickering weakly. Captain Zextal had just begun to think the worst was behind them when their sensor officer's tendrils went stark white. "Captain," the officer whispered, "I'm detecting signatures, thousands of them." Space rippled around them like a disturbed pond. From the quantum shadows emerged ship after ship, each one bearing the emblem of the Earth Defense Force. But these vessels were different. Their hulls seemed to shift between solid matter and pure energy, leaving ghostly trails in their wake. Commander Steele's voice came through the comm. "Captain Zextal, meet the Ghost Fleet, or as we like to call it, humanity's backup plan." The fleet surrounded them in a perfect sphere formation. At its center, a massive dreadnought materialized, nearly as large as the Crimson Dawn, but built with an elegance that made the Meridian vessel look primitive by comparison. A new voice filled their command center, carrying the weight of centuries. "This is Admiral Jack Reynolds of the EDF Ghost Fleet. Welcome to your intervention." Zextal's primary heart nearly stopped. Reynolds? The human admiral who died defending Earth during the Consortium War. Died is a relative term, Captain. A hologram appeared on their bridge, a distinguished human male in an ancient Earth uniform. But there was something off about his appearance. His form seemed to phase in and out of reality, lines of code visible beneath his skin. Humanity found a way to preserve our consciousness after physical death. We upload our best military minds to guide the automated defense grid. You turned your dead into warship AIs. Venra asked, horror and fascination warring in her voice. Reynolds smiled, the expression carrying both warmth and warning. We preferred to think of it as achieving tactical immortality. Every ship you see here is commanded by someone who gave their life defending Earth. We've had centuries to perfect our strategies, millennia of combined combat experience, and nothing but time to prepare for every possible scenario. The Ghost Fleet ships began to move in perfect synchronization, their formations creating complex geometric patterns that seemed to bend space itself. Quantum entanglement on a massive scale. Chief Engineer Krull muttered, his scientific curiosity temporarily overriding his fear. Each ship is linked to every other, sharing processing power and tactical data in real time. Precisely, Reynolds nodded. But that's just the beginning. Show them, Jessica. Commander Steele's Thunderchild suddenly accelerated, passing straight through one of the Ghost Fleet vessels like it wasn't there. As it emerged, both ships seemed to exchange energy, their forms briefly merging before separating again. The Ghost Fleet isn't just a defensive line, Steele explained. It's a quantum superorganism. Each ship can share energy, information, even physical space with any other. We can combine into larger vessels or split into smaller ones. We can exist in multiple places simultaneously or concentrate our entire fleet's firepower into a single point. And the best part, Reynolds added, his hologram now showing the complex mathematical equations running through his digital mind. We're just one layer of Earth's defense. There are dozens more you haven't seen yet. The Ghost Fleet only manifests when we detect particular intentions in those who enter our space. Zextal's secondary heart joined their primary in near failure. What intentions? The shrine in your cargo hold, Reynolds said quietly. Did you really think we wouldn't notice its quantum signature? The temporal energies it's leaking. The hegemony doesn't want it for religious reasons. They want to reverse engineer its time manipulation properties. The bridge fell silent as the Meridians realized just how thoroughly they'd been analyzed, their every secret laid bare by scanning technology they couldn't even detect. Now, Reynolds continued, his form solidifying as he placed his hands behind his back. Shall we discuss your options? The Ghost Fleet hasn't had a good training exercise in decades, but I'm sure we'd all prefer a peaceful resolution. Around them, thousands of formerly human commanders waited in their quantum ships, their combined centuries of experience, focused on one frightened Meridian crew who had just learned why Earth's territory was marked with warnings instead of weapons. Sometimes, Zextal realized, the most terrifying defense wasn't a wall of guns. It was a wall of veterans who had transcended death itself to protect their home. Thunder Bay Station materialized before them like a fevered dream made real. It wasn't built. It was growing, its crystalline structures constantly shifting and reforming. Massive arrays of quantum sensors rotated around a central hub that seemed to exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Beautiful, isn't it?" Dr. Marcus, Mad Dog Riley's voice carried a hint of pride as he greeted the Meridian crew in the station's reception chamber. His casual stance and easy smile seemed at odds with the station's imposing architecture. "Don't worry about the walls. They're just curious about you." Captain Zextol watched in fascination as the nanite-infused walls rippled, patterns flowing across their surface like water. "The station is alive." In a manner of speaking, Riley walked over to a wall and pressed his hand against it. The surface immediately reformed around his fingers, creating an intricate display of the station's systems. "We found that merging organic computing with quantum architecture created some interesting side effects. The station has its own consciousness now, limited but evolving." First Officer Venris' tendrils twisted nervously. "How do you control such a thing?" Riley's smile widened. "We don't. That's the point. The station grows and adapts based on need. Right now, it's reconfiguring the detention block into something more comfortable for Meridian physiology." He paused, tilting his head slightly. "Though you might want to tell your engineer Krull that trying to hack the environmental systems won't work. The station doesn't appreciate it." The Meridians froze. Krull had been attempting to access the station's systems mentally, using his species' natural cybernetic abilities. He hadn't told anyone. "How did you?" Zextol began. "No." Riley tapped his temple. "Humanity's greatest secret isn't our technology, Captain. It's what we became while developing it." His eyes seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "Did you really think we'd master quantum mechanics without it affecting us? Evolution doesn't wait for permission." As if to demonstrate, Riley gestured casually. The station's walls shifted again, this time forming a perfect three-dimensional model of the Crimson Dawn, including every thought and intention of its crew over the past 24 hours. "Telepathy," Venra whispered. "But that's impossible. Humans are supposed to be psychically inert." "We were," Riley acknowledged, walking through the hologram of their ship. "Then we started playing with quantum entanglement on a biological level. Turns out, consciousness is just another form of quantum information. Once we figured that out," he shrugged, "well, let's just say it opened some interesting doors." The walls suddenly pulsed with warning patterns. Riley's expression turned serious. "Speaking of interesting, would you like to explain the quantum shrine now? The one you've got locked behind triple encrypted shields. The one that's currently trying to establish a temporal link with something outside our spacetime." Zextol's four eyes widened in panic. "How can you possibly know? About the shrine's true purpose, the hegemony's plans, the temporal war they're planning to launch?" Riley's voice remained conversational, but his eyes now held ancient wisdom. "Captain, we've known about it since before you accepted the commission. We've known about it since before the shrine was built. When you master quantum mechanics at the level we have, cause and effect become more like guidelines." The station's walls rippled again, this time forming a secure containment chamber around them. Riley walked to its center, where a simple chair materialized. "Now," he said, sitting down, "we have two options. One, you tell me everything voluntarily, and we work together to prevent a temporal war that would devastate 12 galaxies. Or two," he smiled that disarming smile again, "I read your minds anyway, but it gives you a headache. The station prefers option one. It doesn't like cleaning up neural residue." The Meridians looked at each other, then at the walls that seemed to watch them with alien intelligence, and finally at the human who could casually violate the laws of physics and consciousness with a thought. They chose option one. Sometimes, Zextol realized, the most terrifying power wasn't the ability to read minds. It was having the courtesy to ask permission first. The Museum of Species stretched before them, its corridors shifting and reforming as they walked. Dr. Riley led the Meridian crew past display after display, each one more impossible than the last. The Hive Mind Collective. Riley gestured to a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with dying synaptic energy. They thought uniformity was strength. Tried to assimilate Earth in 2157. didn't expect us to weaponize human individuality. We infected their network with the concept of free will. Their entire civilization collapsed in 6 hours. Zextal studied the artifact, noting the decay patterns in its quantum structure. You destroyed them. Destroyed? No. Riley's laugh echoed through the corridor. We saved them. Every member of the collective now lives as an individual in a virtual paradise of their own choosing. They're some of our most valuable allies now. Turns out, once you've been part of a hive mind, you really appreciate the value of being yourself. They moved to the next exhibit, where a time-locked chamber held what appeared to be a simple wooden chair. The Chronarchy's last temporal weapon, Riley explained. They tried to erase humanity from history, sent chrononauts to key points in our development. But they made one crucial mistake. They assumed time was linear. He tapped the chamber's control panel, showing the chair's temporal wake. We developed chaos theory specifically to counter them. Turned out human unpredictability is the perfect defense against temporal manipulation. How? Venra asked, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her caution. Every time they changed our past, we adapted, evolved, became something new. Eventually, they ran out of pasts to change, while we gained the experience of 1,000 different timelines. Riley's eyes gleamed. That's why the hegemony's plan won't work, by the way. You can't erase a species that treats timeline alterations as learning opportunities. The next display showed a floating geometric pattern that hurt to look at, a 4-dimensional object projected into 3-dimensional space. The Logic Lords, Riley said softly. Pure energy beings who existed in higher dimensions. They considered themselves the universe's natural philosophers, tried to force their version of pure logic on our reality. He chuckled. They never understood why their perfect equations kept failing around humans. Couldn't grasp that emotion isn't a flaw in the universe's programming. It's a feature. Krell's tendrils twisted in confusion. You defeated beings from higher dimensions. Defeated? No. We proved them wrong mathematically. Showed them that their perfect logic was actually a limitation. Now they're our universe's leading experts in quantum psychology. Riley pointed to a series of complex equations floating in the air. These are their apology notes. We keep them as a reminder that being right isn't the same as being wise. They passed exhibit after exhibit. The remains of a solar-scale computation engine that had tried to calculate humanity out of existence, only to discover that human consciousness couldn't be reduced to mere mathematics. A quantum play that had attempted to rewrite human DNA, only to be reprogrammed into a universal healing algorithm. A gravity manipulation device that had meant to crush Earth, but now served as the core of their planetary defense system. Finally, they reached a simple black door at the end of the museum. This, Riley said, his voice turning serious, is why we brought you here. Behind this door is humanity's greatest achievement, and our greatest shame. The reason we maintain this restricted zone. The reason we let species like yours occasionally slip through our defenses. You let us through. Zextal's primary heart skipped a beat. Of course, Riley placed his hand on the door. Everything you've seen. The quantum displays. The ghost fleet. This museum. It's all part of something larger. Something we call Project Lighthouse. The door swung open, revealing a vast chamber filled with swirling temporal energies and quantum displays, showing thousands of civilizations across multiple timelines. Welcome, Riley said, to the real purpose of humanity's restricted zone. We're not protecting ourselves from you. He gestured to the massive display, showing the potential futures of countless species. We're protecting you from yourselves. The Meridians stood in stunned silence, finally understanding that they hadn't discovered Earth's defenses at all. They had been chosen to see them. A figure materialized from the quantum shadows of the chamber, her form shifting between solid and ethereal states. Lieutenant Emma Ghost Walker's call sign wasn't just for show. She had literally merged her consciousness with the quantum fabric of space-time. I've been watching your civilization for 30 years, she said, her voice echoing with quantum harmonics. I was there when your scientists first discovered the shrine's temporal properties. I was there when the hegemony made their offer. I was even there when you, Captain Zextal, decided to accept this mission. Impossible, Zextal whispered. We would have detected. A human operative. Walker laughed, her form splitting into multiple quantum echoes before reconverging. Captain, I wasn't physically present. I was walking through the quantum probability streams of your timeline, observing every possible future, guiding your civilization away from the worst outcomes. Dr. Riley nodded solemnly. Project Lighthouse isn't a defense system, Captain. It's a preservation initiative. We monitor every advanced civilization in the galaxy, watching for signs that they're about to make the same mistakes we once did. The chamber's displays shifted, showing countless timelines where civilizations destroyed themselves through temporal warfare, dimensional experimentation, or quantum manipulation beyond their understanding. The restricted zone around Earth. Walker continued, gesturing to a massive holographic map. It's not to keep aliens out. It's a carefully constructed filter, designed to attract precisely the right species at precisely the right moments in their development. The right moments for what? Venra asked, her scientific mind racing with implications. For intervention. Walker waved her hand, and new images appeared, hundreds of civilizations thriving, advancing, reaching into the stars without destroying themselves. We guide species away from paths that would lead to their destruction, sometimes through direct contact, sometimes through subtle manipulation of quantum probabilities. But why? Krell demanded. Why take on such responsibility? Because we almost destroy ourselves, Riley answered quietly. Multiple times, in multiple ways, across multiple timelines. The only reason humanity survived was because of intervention from our own future selves, a temporal paradox that we're still trying to understand. Walker's form solidified as she approached the meridians. Your civilization stands at a crossroads, the shrine you carry. In the original timeline, it leads to a temporal war that cascades across 12 galaxies. The hegemony's attempt to weaponize it creates a causality loop that eventually erases 3 trillion sentient beings from existence. The displays showed the catastrophic timeline. Entire star systems winking out of existence as temporal weapons tore reality apart. But that's not going to happen, she continued, her expression softening. Because you're here now seeing this, understanding what's at stake, making different choices. You orchestrated our entire journey, Zextal realized, their fourth heart finally understanding. The warning buoys, Commander Steele, the Ghost Fleet, all carefully calculated to bring you to this moment, Riley confirmed, to show you why certain technologies, certain paths, need to be handled with care or avoided altogether. Walker raised her hand, creating a quantum construct that looked suspiciously like a contract. Which brings us to why you're really here. The Meridian Federation has tremendous potential. Your species' natural ability to manipulate quantum states, combined with your ethical framework and diplomatic skills, makes you perfect candidates for what we're about to offer. What's that? Zextal asked, though somewhere in their hearts, they already knew. Partnership, Walker said simply. Join us. Become part of Project Lighthouse. Help us guide other civilizations away from catastrophe. Your perspective would be invaluable, especially since you've now experienced firsthand how we operate. The chamber hummed with possibility as the Meridians considered the offer. Around them, the timelines shifted and swirled, showing countless futures hanging in the balance. And if we refuse? Venra asked carefully. Then you leave with modified memories, believing you had a minor shipping delay. Riley shrugged. But somehow, I don't think you will. You've seen too much, understood too much. The real question is, he smiled that knowing smile again. Are you ready to become shepherds of civilization alongside us? In the quantum silence that followed, the fate of not just the Meridian Federation, but countless future civilizations, hung in the balance of their answer. Captain Zextel stood before the gathered representatives of Earth's Defense Council, their crystalline form refracting the quantum light that filled Thunder Bay Station's grand chamber. The shrine from their cargo hold now sat neutralized in the center of the room, its temporal energies safely contained. "We accept your offer," Zextal announced, all four hearts beating in synchronization. The Meridian Federation would be honored to join Project Lighthouse. Commander Steele smiled from her position at the council table. "I told you they'd make the right choice." Their quantum signature showed a 97% probability of ethical alignment. "Probability isn't certainty," Lieutenant Walker reminded her, her form shifting between quantum states. "But in this case, I'm glad you were right." She turned to the Meridians. "You understand what this means. The responsibility you're taking on." "We do." Venera stepped forward, her tendrils moving with newfound confidence. "We've seen what happens when civilizations advance too quickly, grasp at powers beyond their understanding. Someone needs to guide them, protect them from their own ambitions." Dr. Riley nodded approvingly. "And you understand the cost. The secrecy you'll need to maintain. The hard choices you'll have to make. Like the choices you made with us?" Krell asked, his scientific curiosity now tempered with wisdom. "Arranging our accidental discovery of the shrine. Ensuring our path would cross Earth's restricted zone." "Precisely." Admiral Reynolds' hologram materialized among them. "Everything you experienced was calculated to test your species' reactions, ethics, and potential. Your response to superior force, your curiosity about our technology, your horror at the potential devastation of temporal warfare. All of it showed us exactly who you are." The station's walls shifted, displaying the new future timelines already forming from this moment. The catastrophic temporal war was now just one of many avoided disasters in humanity's historical database. "There's something else you should know," Walker said, approaching the Meridian crew. "That quantum plague you've been tracking on your outer colonies. The one you thought the hegemony created." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "It was our first test. We needed to see how your civilization would respond to a crisis. Your scientists' solution of focusing on preservation rather than destruction confirmed our initial assessment." Zextel's primary heart skipped a beat as understanding dawned. "You've been guiding us for years." "Centuries," Steele corrected, "just as others guided us. It's a cycle, Captain. Each civilization that joins Project Lighthouse brings new perspectives, new methods of intervention. The Arcturians taught us subtlety. The Veil Collective showed us how to manipulate quantum probabilities. Now your species' natural ability to interface with quantum systems will open new possibilities we haven't even considered." The chamber's quantum field rippled as humanity's greatest secret was finally revealed in its entirety. A vast network of civilizations working in concert across time and space, each contributing their unique strengths to prevent the collapse of reality itself. "Welcome to the real Earth Defense Force," Riley said warmly, "where the greatest victory isn't winning wars, but preventing them from ever being necessary." As if in response, Thunder Bay Station's consciousness reached out, its quantum architecture reshaping to accommodate its new allies. The walls formed into a crystalline structure that matched Meridian aesthetic preferences while maintaining its core human design principles, a perfect blend of both civilizations. "One last thing," Walker added, her form fully solidifying. "That warning buoy you ignored at the beginning of your journey. It wasn't just marking restricted space. It was measuring your reaction to being told no. The fact that you pushed forward showed curiosity and courage. The fact that you didn't immediately resort to violence showed wisdom." "You mean?" Venera's tendrils twisted in amazement. "Everything is a test," Steele finished. "Even this conversation is shaping probability streams, influencing future events. That's what it means to be part of Project Lighthouse. Every action, every choice, ripples through time and space." As the Meridian crew looked out at their new allies, the quantum ghosts, the dimensional walkers, the temporal guardians, and the evolved humans who had mastered reality itself, they finally understood the truth. They hadn't just entered Earth's territory. They had become part of humanity's greatest mission, ensuring that every civilization had the chance to reach for the stars without burning themselves to ash in the attempt. The one-way journey was complete. A new one was just beginning.